All right, welcome back to my channel, you guys. Today is the first day of the 30 days of yoga for beginners with me, Sarah. Something that I just want to throw out there really quick. We do live way out in the country, and if there are random bird noises, which there was a bird earlier that would not stop, and I was like, so if there are random bird noises, lawnmowers, weed whackers, I do apologize. It's just kind of the ebbs and flow of living out here. So if you hear that, just try to send it out. So today we are going to start with the bare basics of yoga. We're going to go over child's pose, downward dog, chaturanga, and upward facing dog. And we're going to practice them a couple times, practice the options of them, and we're going to go over proper form. And so each day of these 30 days of yoga are going to build off of each other, and you're going to start as a beginner and hopefully end as an intermediate. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope I see you tomorrow. Okay, so before we start, make sure you have a shirt or something, a towel, or washcloth or something available that you can roll up and put under your ankles just in case, and we'll get going on the mat. Okay, so like I said, the 4 moves we're going to go over today are going to be child's pose, downward dog, chaturanga, and upward facing dog. So as we go through, it's going to be a little educational as we go. So we're going to really focus on form, and we're going to at least practice every movement 2 times or more. So let's go ahead, start with child's pose. So make your knees as wide as the mat. Our tops of the feet are on the mat, and our big toes are together. So big toes together, tops of the feet go onto the mat, knees nice and wide, and you're taking a seat on your heels. Now already, if you have any pain in your ankles, then that's where the cloth comes in, whether it's a towel, a t-shirt, whatever else. You can put it right underneath the part of the ankle that flexes. And so bringing that cloth underneath, and then bring your knees nice and wide again, hopefully giving some release. Maybe a little bit more with a towel than a t-shirt. And then from here, we're just going to bring our hands down onto the ground and slowly walk your hands out one at a time until your forehead comes down to the ground, and you're just going to breathe. So this is child's pose. At any time during any yoga practice, whether it's this one or any of them during our 30 days, if any yoga practice you do a move or a combination and you're like, oh my goodness, this is not for me, I'm exhausted, I want you to come down into this pose. So child's pose, knees nice and wide, forehead to the ground, arms stretched out, fingers spread nice wide apart. Breathing in and out through the nose, forehead is on the floor. If your hips are away from your heels, as like they're here, don't worry, one day, eventually sitting your hips onto your heels. Maybe today's not the day. And let's go ahead, coming up into a tabletop position. So spread your fingertips nice and wide and kind of grip the mat with your hands. Bring your knees just a little bit closer together, kind of hip width apart. You're going to move that cloth. And then we're going to tuck our toes underneath. And we're going to press up into our first downward dog. So press the ground away with your hands and your feet, and you're just hovering your knees here. You can wiggle them to make sure. And then press your hips back over your heels. And so we're kind of in a crouched tiger position. And then slowly we're going to start to straighten the legs into our first downward dog. Now what's really important in our downward dog is that we don't straighten our legs all the way, because then our spine sometimes likes to round. So you want to make sure we have a straight spine. So bend your knees. Try to get your belly button to your thighs. Straight spine all the way. Maybe you can bend into one knee and then the other. Maybe your knees are really bent, it doesn't matter. And our fingertips are spread super wide. Our feet are hip width apart. And our head is nice and relaxed in between our arms. And let's go ahead, bring your knees back down to the mat, nice and wide. Untuck your toes, tops of the feet on the mat. Sit your hips back into our child's pose. And breathe. Beautiful. So every time we're going to add on just a little bit. Let's get ready. Coming back up into that tabletop position. Bring your knees hip width apart. Tuck your toes under. Fingertips are nice and wide. Press the ground away. Press your hips back over your heels. And slowly start to straighten the legs out just a little bit into our nice downward dog. And then from here, we're just going to shift our weight forward into a high plank. Core tight, press the ground away. And shift back into our downward dog. Let's do that a couple times. Shift back into that plank. And back into our downward dog. And let's do it one more time. Shift forward into the plank. And back into our downward dog. Beautiful. Go ahead and release your knees down to the ground. Untuck your toes, hips down onto the heels, forehead to the ground. Extend your arms into that child's pose. And breathe. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to add on a little bit more again. So fingertips nice and wide, coming up into our tabletop position. Bringing your knees hip width apart. Tuck your toes under, press up. Press your hips back over your heels and start to straighten out the legs. Downward dog. From here, we're shifting our weight forward into that high plank. However, we're going to drop our knees down to the ground for a modified chaturanga. So bring your elbows, tuck your elbows in so that you're going to catch your rib cage as you come down. So core tight, suck in your elbows, catch your rib cage as you slowly lower chaturanga till your chin is on the ground, and then inhale into a low cobra. So for a low cobra, we want to make sure the tops of the feet are on the floor, our legs are engaged, our shoulder blades are pinching together so that if we lift our hands up, we stay in the same spot. What I don't want to see is shoulders rounding forward. Maybe it's right here right now. Eventually one day, holding it up here. And pressing the ground away, back. Making your knees nice and wide. Sit your hips back, tops of the feet on the floor, forehead to the ground, child's pose. And breathe. Okay, we're going to do it again. Go ahead, spread your fingers nice and wide. Coming up into a tabletop position, bringing your knees shoulder width apart, hip width apart, tucking your toes under. Press the ground away as you press your hips back over your heels and start to straighten your legs up into our downward dog. Beautiful. Shift your weight forward into that high plank. Drop your knees down to the ground. Tuck your elbows in, engage your core, look forward, slowly lower chaturanga. And then inhale, low cobra. Tops of the feet on the floor, legs engaged, shoulders engaged, back engaged. Looking forward, never up, just right in front of you. And then pressing back into our child's pose. Knees wide, tops of the feet on the floor. Placing your head down to the ground and extending your arms all the way out. And breathe. Okay, so for our next round, we're going to be doing the full expression. We've been doing the modified or the option. You can stick and do the modified with us, or you can take the full expression. It's completely up to you. So let's come back into that tabletop position. Tuck the toes under. Press the ground away, press your hips over your heels, and slowly start to straighten your legs. Not all the way, keep that little bend. Fingertips are nice and wide. And press forward into our plank position. Now from here, we're gonna chaturanga from the high plank if you're going into the full expression. So core stays tight, suck your elbows in, and then we're gonna slowly lower as we catch our rib cage on the way down. And then pause. And then flip the top of your feet onto the floor, pressing all the way up into an upward facing dog. Now from here, you want to use that upper body to pull your shoulder blades back, looking forward, engaging the legs, tops of the feet on the floor, and then pressing up back into a downward dog. Beautiful. From here, place your knees onto the ground nice and wide, tops of the feet on the floor, child's pose. And breathe. You can do small circles with your wrists if you need to. Beautiful. Let's do that whole one again. So, spreading your fingers nice and wide, coming up into our tabletop position, bringing your knees together, tucking your toes underneath, pressing the ground away, press your hips back over your heels. Slowly start to straighten out your legs. Keep a little bend in the knees. Downward dog. And then inhale as you shift your weight forward over your hands into that high plank. And shift your weight forward even a little bit more. Slowly lower as you exhale, tucking your elbows in. Inhale, tops of the feet on the floor. Press the ground away. Looking forward, engaging the legs. Engaging the shoulder blades, upward dog, and exhale, downward dog. And releasing your knees nice and wide on the mat. Untuck your toes, the tops of the feet are on the mat, head down to the ground. Child's pose and breathe. Beautiful. And slowly walk your hands up, one and then the other, and come seating on your heels. And if you need your cloth again or your towel or whatever, go ahead and put it under your heels. Okay, that's it for today. It's nice and quick. Yeah, so by next time you should know child's pose, downward dog, chaturanga, and upward facing dog, and the modifications. So you can try this out on your own. You can replay it and keep going as many times as you'd like. This takes practice. It takes so much practice to be able to feel strong in any of these positions. So if downward dog or chaturanga or upward dog, if any of them are like your arms are shaking or they're killing you or you're sweating, that's so normal. Like that is so fine. And in 30 days, hopefully you'll feel strong in them. So thank you for practicing with me, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.